and gentlemen. Podcasting since 2005. You were listening to Gamertag Radio with your hosts Godfrey, Pete Rock, Parris, Pasta. Come on. Yeah.
Welcome to Gamertag Radio episode 473. This is your host Godfrey, and also we have Parris. Parris, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
And I believe we have a special guest this week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you want to introduce him? He's a legend in the gaming industry.
Well,
you know?
when you think gaming media, there's only one person you can go to, and that's Mr. Geoff Keighley. Thank you for coming on the show.
Guys, it's great to be here. It's an honor, really. Thanks for inviting me on. I've listened to Aaron Greenberg on the show so many times. I figured eventually I needed to pop on, and I'm glad to be here.
No, thank you for coming on. Which, to be perfectly honest with you, what prompted me to reach out to you to get you on the show is you're doing a podcast now. So why don't you talk about that a little bit and tell us what inspired you to want to get into the podcasting world?
Yeah, thanks, first of all. I appreciate it. And you guys are veterans of this space. And I've been listening to podcasts for a long time. I don't get to listen to as many as I want because I kind of work from home and I'm traveling. So I don't really have a commute every day. So it's hard for me to, some of these podcasts are hours and hours, and I'd love to listen to them more. But yeah, I find the space really interesting. One thing that I've really wanted to do is more interviewing. Just sort of long form interviews of folks in the video game industry. So I started thinking that I wanted to do that. It's so easy now to launch a podcast. It seems like people are having a lot of success with them. The audience responds to it. So I said, let me just try and do something. And I did this test episode that I called Game Slice. I did it with Gabe Newell and Eric Johnson from Valve that we posted up on iTunes and SoundCloud and a bunch of other places. So it was really a test. I wasn't, I'm not sure how often I'm going to do it yet or what's going to happen, but it was fun just to have kind of an in-depth conversation with some cool people in the game industry. Podcasting felt like the right format for it. So yeah, it's gotten a pretty good response so far. At least in day one. So I'll be interested to see how the numbers go, and it seems like people like it. So hopefully I'll keep doing it in some form.
Besides the whole content, I gotta say I'm very picky with audio quality. I think your audio quality was pretty good. Great intro and everything. It was legit, and it was on point. 60 minutes on the dot. Yeah,
it just happened to work out that way because I had an hour with Gabe. And then we did like a little small talk. So that was when I did my intro. And yeah, I thought that was funny. It was like 1 hour and 21 seconds or something.
The thing for me listening to that, first of all, the fact that you had Gabe Newell on there in the first place, along with Eric Johnson, that's a rarity to actually get him to talk for that amount of time. But being who you are and the connections that you have in the industry, I just think you doing a podcast and, like you say, doing that long format where you're talking to these important people in the industry been fantastic. Like, just thinking off the top of my head, you could get someone like Phil Spencer on,
maybe,
or,
say yes, but yeah, no.
Well, put the pressure on him. But the point is, you're definitely the perfect person to get into this podcasting realm and have these kind of conversations because, on our podcast and other gaming podcasts, we talk about these things all the time. And we're all, well, we would love to talk to person X and ask them this question. But, trying to cut through the red tape of PR and all that, it's kind of hard. But I think you'd be perfect for it. And for people that have not listened to that episode you've done yet, I mean, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I'm a big fan of Valve and everything that they do, especially what they're doing with VR. And you got him to kind of speak on his take on why they went with Linux, versus now Microsoft getting into Windows 10 and all those things. I just think it was fantastic. So I really hope you do more of these and you do them as often as your schedule allows.
Yeah, thanks. No, I was really inspired by what Valve showed me from their VR demo. So that got the wheels turning. And when I was up there with Gabe, he seemed so just excited really about what Valve was doing. I really wanted to sort of capture that energy, and I thought podcasts would be a great format for it. So yeah, he was really engaged. It's great to talk with him on the record, and yeah, got a good response. So yeah, I definitely, that's my hope, is that we'll get some really cool people across the video game business that'll be on it. Some people that are game designers, some people from the entertainment world that like games. I'm definitely not gonna just sort of, do like 3 a week and talk to everybody. I really want to kind of, have a very a special group of people that we bring on the podcast. So I'm not sure who will be episode 2. Who would you like to see for the next episode?
Yeah, honestly, I would like. This is going to be kind of hard because we've done like a lot of interviews, right? But there's one person that we were dying to have on our show, and it's Reggie from Nintendo. Yeah. He's done a lot of video interviews, but had never done like an actual podcast ever. So this could be his first podcast interview. It might be fun.
I'd love to have Reggie on. I mean, he's I consider him a friend. As well as someone that we obviously I cover and work with in a bunch of ways, and he's a great guy. And I actually think there's a lot of sides to Reggie that people don't see, and I think you see him at E3, you see him on stage, but he's a really great guy and talking about his life and growing up. And he actually many years ago worked at VH1, and I do a lot of stuff with Spike TV. Over the years inside of Viacom, and it's funny because you walk around the halls and people say, "I remember Reggie back when he was the marketing guy at VH1," and he's had a really cool career. So yeah, Reggie's definitely I would love to get Reggie and Phil Spencer and Sean Layden and lots of people like that on the podcast over time. So yeah, I mean that's my hope is I'll sort of deploy it when I think I have a guest that's honestly worthy of an hour of people's time to kind of listen to. So yeah, Reggie would be amazing, and I'll put in a good word for you if we get him on the podcast.
All right, cool.
Well, Geoff, selfishly, I actually have a list of 3 people I would love to see you get on. First one would be Casey Hudson. I mean, I know he's kind of sort of out of the industry. I'm sure he's going to be coming back into it soon, doing something. Would love to hear him.
Came to the Game Awards. He's an awesome guy.
Would love to hear Ken Levine.
Yep.
And surprising, well, it might not be surprising, but I would love for you to be able to talk to Peter Molyneux, especially with some of the stuff that's come out recently with him, like with the rock, paper, shotgun interview and the interview he did with The Guardian. I would love to just have him in a comfortable environment where he can just truly speak his mind on the industry and where he's currently at.
Well, thanks. Yeah, those are good suggestions. Yeah, I talked to Peter a few weeks ago after all that went down, and I think he's soldiering on, and the team there is working on a lot of great stuff, and I'm sure it's not the last we've heard of from Peter Molyneux. So I've always been a big fan of his, and he's a guy that when I was growing up, I mean the game Syndicate, Magic Carpet, Theme Park. I mean, these were games that were seminal games that I grew up with. And I think sometimes, people forget the legacy of some of these creators. And I get it that, people make mistakes along the way. People will take pot shots at me for, Doritos Pope for the rest of my life. And it's one of those things that at the end of the day, it's like, you got to remember sort of that, he really has devoted his life to making great video games. And that's something I think sometimes people, tend to forget. We have very, very short memories sometimes. But yeah, Peter's a great guy.
Can I sidetrack you just a second? Because you brought up something that I was always curious about, the Dorito Pope thing, the whole NeoGAF thing. I mean, on a personal level, how do you feel about that? Do you just take it all in jest? Is this just people just having fun on the internet? Or
yeah, I mean, I think now you do. Obviously, when it sort of first happened, it was disappointing that you spend 20 plus years of your life kind of, trying to do some good and, cover games intelligently, try and do as much as you can for the industry. And then people sort of, I think that the venom initially with it was sort of surprising to me. And, that was a time where it kind of got all wrapped into, it was me. And then there was the girl in the United Kingdom that had done, like, there was just a whole bunch of things going on. And it all sort of got put into this sort of, Doritos Pope chapter of gaming media. So I became the poster boy for that. And look, now I sort of laugh at it. It's kind of funny because, many years hence, I think people still think they're original when they make the joke on Twitter or something like that. And it's like, it's sort of, it was funny 3 years ago. And it's like, if people still want to keep riding it, I think that's, hey, they're entitled to it. And yeah, I sort of hope that I've moved on and done a lot of, great things since then, and will continue to do things. And if anything, it sort of, I think, energizes you to try and do more good and try and do more great things for the industry across the board. And, I wouldn't change anything. It's like that was a stepping stone to be able to go off and, make my own video game awards and, do other things on my own. So that's what I think sometimes people forget, even when, you talk about the like the stuff I did at Spike with the video game awards, and everyone would look at the game awards last year and say like, wow, it was so much better. And it's like, well, it's, sometimes to get to that point, you have to take steps along the way. I learned so much at Spike building that show and working with incredible producers and incredible people that helped me, learn how to make a big show like that. So, sometimes to get the end result you want, you have to be patient and kind of work within the system. And that's sort of, similar to that whole Doritos controversy. It was unfortunate that it kind of happened, and we all learn from it, and we try and move on. But yes, I'm sure I will see that photo many more times in my life, and if anyone ever Google image searches me, I'm sure that will show up.
Well, you actually did the perfect lead into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, and that is the Video Game Awards. You took it independent, so to speak, this year. So a couple things. First of all, I want to say, I think the fact that you did it right before the PlayStation experience was both good and bad. Mm-hmm. But I think overall as a show, me being a gamer and being passionate about gaming, I thought this is definitely the right direction I want to see these awards go. It should not be all about celebrity. It should be about the games themselves and the people making the games. So the fact that you delivered it directly to us, via Xbox Live and Steam and all the other streaming channels was perfect. But I'm curious, from your standpoint, how happy were you with the format that you did last year, and what do you think you could do to improve it moving forward?
Sure. Well, thanks. First of all, I really appreciate that. It was a gargantuan effort to launch that show last year and get it in front of an audience. And yeah, I'm still kind of shocked that it came together, and it came together as well as it did. And it was a first year. It was a version 1.0, and we definitely need to put some patches out there. The challenge with those shows is you get to do them once a year, so it sometimes takes a long time to You spend 10 months playing, and it all comes down to 2 days before the show if this happens or that happens. And there were a bunch of technical issues with some of the audio and things like that I wish were a little more smoother. But those are easier fixes. I think the big thing that I really liked is that people responded to segments in the show that had a lot of heart, like the tribute to Sierra Online, Ken and Roberta Williams, who are personal heroes of mine. It was nice to see that the audience really respected that stuff. So it sort of made me even more inclined this year to, I think, push a little bit more in that direction of, really paying tribute to people. And that extends to the awards as well. I think you'll see this year more awards on stage, more award presentations as part of the show. And I think we veered a little bit too heavy into the world premiere realm last year. And I think what you'll see this year is probably more of a balance. You'll see more around, I'd say probably 6 to 8 absolutely massive world premieres inside of the show, and then more awards. So I think I want to get that balance a little bit, a little more towards the awards. But it's tough because at the end of the day, people want to see games. They want to see news and announcements about future titles, and that's really what drives a lot of the viewership. When you look at the DICE Awards or the BAFTA Awards, the GDC Awards, I mean, they're fantastic award ceremonies. I watched them all. I watched the South by Southwest Awards last week, and I researched and I pay attention to all that stuff. But they are award shows, and they get viewers that are in the thousands. And the exciting thing for me about the Game Awards is that we can get millions of people to tune in. And the reason they tune in is because they want to see a first look at a new game from any of the big developers that we've had on the show. So I think we want to balance a little bit more with awards and world premieres. But beyond that, I think you'll see, a show that I think will hopefully be a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter. It's great now that, I know I'm going to do it this year. We're already very deep into planning it. There'll be, a ton of news and announcements coming out over the next few months about the show and some really great partnerships that we're striking around it. So it's only going to get better. And it's nice to know that, at the end of the day, I'm driving it forward this year, and I have the backing of the publishers, and I think hopefully the backing of the fans as well now to continue to grow it. So I'm really I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I definitely am as well. I guess the one question I have to follow up on that is, are you going to do same venue right before the PlayStation experience again?
I don't know. We're starting to figure that stuff out now. I'm not sure what PlayStation's plans are yet in terms of, if they're doing another PlayStation experience or where it will be. It was serendipitous that it sort of all came together like that in December with the PlayStation event. And, being a first year show, it was great that Sony was able to, bring a lot of fans to Las Vegas. I think it was a good partnership. What did you think was the negative that it was?
I'll tell you. I can say something real quick about that. I think the negative. By the way, I really like the award show. I think it was way too long, and maybe next year or this year you could probably make it a little bit shorter.
It'll be this year. I think we'll be closer to 2 hours than 3. But
two. I think 2 hours is good.
You think it's going to be 2, and then it ends up being 2.5. It's like they don't want to take world premieres away. So like, how do you fit it all in? But go ahead.
But see, I really enjoy the awards, and one of my highlights to me was seeing the fans there instead of the industry people. Because this is like their first time being involved with something special like this, behind the scenes and stuff. So that was really, really cool, man. And another thing too, man, the highlight too was seeing Nintendo highlighting, showing a little preview of Zelda. That was like a pretty big thing too, So.
I was shocked that came together. It was a very pleasant surprise when we got that video and we saw them wanting to show that much of it.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio.
What did you think the negative was about being close to the PlayStation Experience?
Well, the fact that it was the day before PlayStation Experience, like, for example, PlayStation showed that Uncharted 4 demo.
Yep.
I mean, if that's something you had at the show, I mean, obviously people would have gone crazy over that, but obviously Sony wants to protect their brand. They're not going to have that on your show. They're going to have it at their show, so to speak. So,
I think, they brought some great stuff on The Order and Bloodborne to the awards. And, it's always a challenge now with the game companies, speaking candidly, is that, a lot of them want to do things on their own Twitch channels. They want to do things on their own stages. So, I think in PlayStation Experience, they were great partners in that regard. I thought we had some great stuff. Uncharted, it was also a 15-minute demo. So, you guys want a 2-hour award show. You want tons of awards in it. If all of a sudden Uncharted is 1/8 of the show,
you don't want this to be a infomercial either, So.
Right. Well, but that thing is, it's like I think Uncharted worked well for Sony in that venue, and that was a lengthy demo. And I think it was important for them to sort of show one big piece of content like that. Mm-hmm. So who knows now that Uncharted is, they announced it's not coming until 2016. Maybe we'll be able to do something with them this year at the show around the game. I mean, it's early. We haven't really had any of those conversations, but I PlayStation, it worked well. I mean, I think, I heard from a lot of Xbox fans afterwards that wish there was more Xbox content in the awards. And I think that's something that, we all hoped for. And there was, a bunch of things that sort of went on inside of that with Xbox that I hope, they'll be back in a bigger way this year showing stuff. And, the thing that is really important to me is that the show is an impartial stage, and the Nintendo, as you saw, had a big night and showed a lot of great stuff. Sony was there, a lot of the third parties were there, and I really want to do something that it's less about who's winning at the show and more of who's winning in terms of the world premieres, at least, and it's really more about everyone coming out to show the great new stuff they're doing that inspires us all to keep playing games.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Well, I would like to see also maybe behind the scenes on your podcast. That I think that's a great idea. Instead of just interviews every time, it's cool to get to know the person, the podcaster behind the scenes, how it is. And I really enjoy the live stream that you had. I think it was like a Q&A with the fans.
Yeah,
that was pretty fun. So you probably could do something like that instead of live streaming, maybe Q&A questions, via email, for the podcast. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love doing that, and doing the Twitch stuff and getting close to the community. And I've definitely thought about, like, do I do a behind the scenes podcast, kind of getting ready for the awards. The one challenge with the awards is, we have so many secrets that we're keeping for the show. Whenever I talk to people, I want to be somewhat honest about what we can and can't talk about. But I definitely do want to do more behind the scenes stuff with the awards. And this year, with more lead time, we're hoping to do more video series, podcasts, other things leading up to the show in December.
Yeah, there was one thing though I personally thought that was going to happen for last year's awards, was having all three top guys from the all three companies, from Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, together to maybe at least to present an award or something like that. I thought that was going to happen this year, but I guess.
Well, it was, believe me, we were on the same page. That was definitely something we were hoping to do. And we were hoping to, I never told this story, but yeah, I presented Game of the Year, and the original hope was to have Reggie, Phil, and Sean all up there presenting that award, but we couldn't make that happen this year just because of schedules with everyone. But my hope is, we'll be able to pull that off this year.
All right, cool. Awesome.
Transitioning question. Another question I wanted to have for you was the Final Hours, series that you've done. I'm a big fan. I got them all when they came out. Any plans for future ones?
Portal's my favorite one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Any plans for future editions of that?
Definitely. We've got, I've got a bunch of Final Hours in production right now. I'm doing one on No Man's Sky that I'm excited about. I've can talk to you about that one. They've got a few others that I don't think I can really talk about yet, but definitely going to be doing more in the next couple of years. Also trying some different formats. There's one that I'm going to do in a very sort of different way. So it's not going to be a traditional sort of sit down and read iPad app. So yeah, I'm definitely kind of playing with the format, but definitely want to do more of those. Typically you'll see them that'll come out kind of early in the year just because I get so busy with the awards at the end of the year. Right. But I enjoy doing those. There's a great audience for them. Part of what's inspired me to write those things for the past 20 years is that it's this, it's a great archive of these incredible stories of development. And when I was getting my Valve podcast ready, I was looking back to like the photos I have from the making of the original Half-Life, and the fact that I have those, I have the negatives on them, I have the film. It's really cool to see that this history of the gaming industry is being charted like this, and I'm honored that I've been able to sort of be there from the get-go with a lot of these developers and hopefully continue to tell their stories.
Yeah, I mean, I found the Titanfall one pretty fascinating in that you see this game when it debuted at E3 and everyone's all excited about it and everything, but then you start reading that Final Hours and you just see how bare bones their development was in the early days. And it's surprising being able to have that peek behind the curtain and seeing that with that company. I even thought the Mass Effect 2 one was pretty interesting as well, just how that team put everything together, and it just seemed like last minute, that's when it all gelled. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that was, part of the goal of those is to show the context around which these games are made. And sometimes we just put them in and we don't understand, well, why did they make that decision, or why don't they have this? And the Final Hours is about, these developers being really honest and brutally honest about the choices they have to make along the way. And it's not something that every developer agrees to do. I mean, there's certain games that, I'd love to write Final Hours on, and once in a while people say no. And, it's often because the developer isn't ready to, sort of share everything warts and all. Like you mentioned Ken Levine, like I was working on a Final Hours of BioShock Infinite, and at one point we stopped because he got uncomfortable with sort of some of the things we were going to have to talk about in the app, and I never wrote that story. So, it's definitely a partnership with the developers, and, all my hats off to like Vince and the guys at Respawn who were just, completely open and honest about everything they went through on that game. But yeah, it takes sort of it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of candor, to be that honest in front of the fans. But that's really, if I'm going to put months of my time into building those things, I want to work with teams that are willing to, document the truth as it went down.
Was there any favorites or challenging ones for you, for the ones that you worked on in the past?
Yeah, I mean, there's amazing ones over the years. Like, before I was doing the iPad apps, I was writing them as stories on GameSpot. And, I remember when I was in college, I wrote Final Hours of Half-Life. I did a story about Ion Storm, which was John Romero's company from id that made a game called Daikatana that some people may remember. If you're younger, you may not. But I got to be around some amazing developers like Peter Molyneux when he was writing Black and White. I remember going over in 2001 to visit Hideo Kojima for the making of Metal Gear Solid 2, which was pretty crazy to be in Japan right after 9/11 and visiting with him. So yeah, there've been there've been a lot of great memories. It's always fun to work with Valve, and now I've done 3 stories: Half-Life, Half-Life 2, and Portal 2 with Valve. So those have been really special. I love working with them. So yeah, there's some of my best memories writing them, and then also getting the feedback and the reaction from the fans. It's always just phenomenal to hear that it's inspired some people to get into game development or want to be closer to these studios. So that's always the goal, is to inspire the reader after you play Portal 2 and you say, oh my God, I love this game, I want to know everything about it. This is a way to sort of go inside the game.
When you decide to pick a certain game for that, is it based on popularity or something that do you think that it's like something special to you, or how's that behind the scenes? Because a lot of people probably don't know. They probably think that maybe a company will contact you, for you to work on.
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's sort of a combination of things. It's usually, a game that I'm really excited about personally, because I think to, devote a couple months of my time to writing about it, I have to generally be jazzed about playing the game. And those, only really work if I'm excited about it. So yeah, I get lots of pitches from people saying, hey, do you want to write a final hours of this game or that game? And, it's rare I can do them, because I really only have the bandwidth to do maybe, 1 or 2 a year, because of the time commitment of them. So it's a combination of games I'm really excited about, developers who are really willing to sort of put the time and effort in, because, they're busy making games. So there have been cases over the years where I've talked to someone and, it just hasn't been the right fit, or timing hasn't worked. Like I remember I was, talking at one point about doing a final hours of The Last of Us, which I really wanted to do with Naughty Dog. But then I think when we first talked about it, the game was going to ship sort of towards the end of the year when I was working on the Game Awards, or VGAs at the time. And I just didn't have the bandwidth for it. The game eventually moved to the next June, and we just never sort of got that back on track. But yeah, it's a really intense thing bandwidth wise to be able to do them. So it's got to be a combination of a game I'm excited about. I've got the time. The developer wants to put the time into it. And then, if all the stars align, we make one. And if not, we don't. So yeah, there's no real rhyme or reason to how they happen. But, I would not expect more than 1 or 2 a year, just because they're really time intensive to do.
Now, I have a question for you that's completely off the topic of this. It's more just in the gaming industry as a whole. Nintendo. I mean, obviously the news just came out here the other day that they're actually going to start making games for smartphones, things like that. With the troubles that they've had with the Wii U, and also in that announcement, they did say that they're working on a next gen console. Mm-hmm. Is Nintendo okay just staying the course that they're at? Does Nintendo need to do something drastic moving forward, or should they get out of hardware altogether? I'm personally of the belief, just to give my opinion on it, I think Nintendo should just focus on the DS, maybe focus on mobile. But as far as console gaming goes, maybe just go third party.
Well, one thing though, Parris, before Geoff answer this too, but I noticed too last year they also got Developer of the Year, right, for the awards.
Well, and that's my point. That's my point, because they
make amazing stuff, and I think it's a really progressive move. Obviously, that they finally decided to move into the smartphone space, and that they're actually going to develop these games. I was reading an interview today with Iwata on Time Magazine Online. He was saying, no, Nintendo teams are going to actually develop some of these games, which is cool. Although he said, Miyamoto is going to stay focused on Wii U titles. So. Yeah, I don't think we know enough information about kind of what the next Nintendo console is to really answer, whether they should or shouldn't do that. I think it was the right move for them to get into the smartphone space. You saw their stock went up a ton. I mean, that's a big leap for them. I think the real question is are they making, kind of a traditional, TV console? Or are they making some hybrid of, your smartphone can plug into it, or, I think what's happening in the traditional console space is there's going to be radical change over the next few years. And you see, Xbox One and PS4, great systems. But, you look at your iPhone, your iPad, I mean, you can make some pretty amazing games on those systems. And I'm a firm believer that, eventually you're going to probably have more power in your pocket than you are in your console. And then, you're going to take your iPhone and you're going to AirPlay that to your TV with a Bluetooth controller in your hand. And it's going to feel like you're playing, a pretty high-end console without needing that box. So, I think that's a challenge that Nintendo faces, but also Sony and Microsoft. And sort of how do you stay apart? How do you build an ecosystem? How do you sort of play in this world where everything is fully digital? So, yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo announced the NX because they wanted people to know that they weren't just going to become a developer. I think their point is that there's certain games that work on smartphones. There's certain games that work really well with controllers. So I have no idea what that console is going to be. They've also publicly talked about the quality of life initiative and trying to sort of have a product around that. To like help you fall asleep and things like that. So I don't know what Nintendo's going to do, but it was a big move for them to say that they're going to do stuff with smartphones. So we should celebrate that at least for now.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
This is Gamertag Radio. Voicemail 786-2737-GTR.
Well, you brought up a point with the fact that you're saying that eventually you think the phone that's in your hand is going to be more powerful than the console that's under your TV. Now, people think I'm crazy, but I look at what Microsoft is currently doing with the Windows 10 integration and the Xbox app on Windows 10 and, the streaming back and forth and the eventual cross-platform play. That's pretty much the direction that they're headed. So I'm of the belief that maybe we'll see one more console cycle, but it would not surprise me at all to just see that this Microsoft and this PlayStation and this Nintendo ecosystems just become digital, almost like an app, so to speak, like Steam has their stores. Yeah,
exactly. I think you're going to see more of that. And, at the end of the day, like Sony and Microsoft have incredible studios making incredible games. Nintendo does. But, the whole idea of exclusive games on one platform, we'll see where that goes. But, when I look at the Xbox One under my TV, I'm like, that looks really big for what it does.
Right.
And, it's like we love games on the systems and, we will invest in them, especially guys like us that are the core gamers. But, when you think of, the addressable market, what's kind of, the thing that everyone's excited about with Nintendo is like you go from, the Wii U, which I don't know, has an installed base of maybe, I don't know what it is, 10 million or something. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong, but it's like something around there. Worldwide to, smartphones where there are hundreds of millions of these devices out there. So, as I think about how do games reach a wider audience, I get excited about the idea that, you may just be able to play games, as you said, on your phone, on your television, and not require this, two-part tariff of having to buy a console in order to play these games. So, and PlayStation had tried that with PlayStation Mobile. I think there's going to be a bunch of ways you're going to be able to sort of consume gaming content moving forward. And there may be a console in the future that, for high-end gamers, just like, people have $2,000 or $3,000 PCs to play at the ultimate high end of PC gaming. But I think we're going to see more ways to access this content and, the traditional idea of, buying a $400 console and a $60 box game. I mean, that's going to, it's going to change over the next few years.
What are your thoughts about Uncharted 4 getting delayed to spring of 2016?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's, I'm sure they're going to deliver an absolutely incredible game, for 4. And I remember, Uncharted 3, I think was good, but probably not as great as everyone wanted it to be. I mean, Uncharted 2 was, one of the best games of last generation. And I think 3, got a little rushed. That was just my interpretation of it. But I think, they really want to build a game that is going to be as good as The Last of Us, right? And, Last of Us was an incredible game. And Neil and Bruce and the team there want to take the time to get it right. And hats off to Sony for letting those guys have the time. Because, I'm sure Sony would have loved nothing more than to have Uncharted come out this holiday season to go up against Halo and Zelda. So I feel like if they can...
Tomb Raider.
And you're right. Yeah, Tomb Raider. I mean, there's lots of stuff coming out this year. So, yeah, I'm sure Sony would have loved it. But, Naughty Dog's going to take the time they need to get that game right. And I have no doubt that they are going to deliver something, absolutely incredible when it does ship. So, yeah, it's a bummer. It's not coming out this year, but it'll come out in the spring. And I think, there's going to be a lot of great games to play this fall anyways. So, we'll play it next year.
Well, I know you have more access than we do, obviously. So there's probably things that that you can't talk about.
No, not really. What?
Okay, let's just pretend that it is. But do you think that 2015 is going to be the kickstart for this generation that 2007 was for the previous generation? Just on what we're seeing so far, because
came out in 2007. I can't even remember.
BioShock, Mass Effect, Halo 3, the original Uncharted. I know I'm missing other things, but there were a ton of games in that year that would kind of define that entire gen. Oh, Call of Duty 4 came out that year. Those type of games.
Yeah, it's tough now because I feel like there are fewer games. Lots of stuff gets delayed, and like I remember every year with VGAs or Game Awards, you would look at this stuff, and it would sort of be a good preview for me of like what the next year was going to look like. And sometimes people would be like, "Well, the lineup of the VGAs wasn't that great." And I'm like, "Well, the game's coming next year. That's sort of what you're getting." And there are usually a couple surprises along the way. I do think it'll be a good year for games. There's a lot of amazing indie stuff that just is popping up too. Like I was playing Ori the other night. It's a beautiful game, and that's stuff that really is inspiring to me. And it's not necessarily $100 million budget blockbuster game, but it's still really awesome. So I think we're seeing way more indie stuff. Yes, there will be some big games this year, but like BioShock, Mass Effect, Uncharted. I mean, those were, the start of some amazing franchises. And you look at this year, I mean, there are a lot of, great sequels announced. There's, some new stuff. There's, Bloodborne's coming out. But, a lot of the games are like, it's franchises you've seen before. I mean, Halo's great. Tomb Raider is great. Zelda's great. Of course, there'll be another Call of Duty. There'll be another Assassin's Creed. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to see a ton of like really huge blockbuster new IP this year. So, if you mentioned those three franchises in 2007 as starting off, I don't know. I mean, I think Evolve came out. It sort of did okay, I think. But yeah, I mean, can you guys think of any like big new IPs that you're excited about this year?
New IPs? Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, new IPs, no. I mean, I'm excited for The Witcher 3. I'm excited for Batman that's coming out.
And maybe in Paris, maybe an announcement of Battletoads. I don't know, maybe.
Teasing that. I mean, there's got to be something going on there with Rare, because at GDC they teased that. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, they'll bring back franchises, but yeah, if you say, is it going to be the same as 2007 where those three monstrous franchises came out for the first time? No, but are we going to get some really great games? Yes, but it's tough now, launching a new IP in the console space when you're spending, $50 million plus on a game. And you saw like The Order came out, and that was a huge bet for Sony, and, game wasn't that great. So, it's really tough, and I think you're going to see fewer and fewer of those bets. So yes, I think it'll be a great year, and I'm psyched to play Batman and Witcher and all these other titles that are coming out this year. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to be the same. I mean, 2007 is a different time. The industry is changing rapidly, and I see that as a member of the media. It's like there are fewer games. There's lots of people moving into the smartphone space, mobile space with all these games. The indie scene is exploding. Like in 2007, there were a couple cool indie games that were coming out. Now it's like every day I can't even keep up with all the stuff that gets announced. So I think it's different, right? I mean, 2015 is going to have some big blockbuster franchises, but a lot of the new ideas I think are coming from the indie scene. And that's, it's not a bad thing. I just think it's different than, a BioShock launching, but will The Witness be this year's BioShock? Or I think you're going to find some surprising games out of the sort of the AA and indie scene that could end up being the next big franchise.
Well, what is your thoughts on people like Cliffy B and Ken Levine, for example, going from the big AAA studios to purposely scaling back to smaller development teams making games? Is that the right approach that we need moving forward with gaming, or I understand that there will always be a place for AAA big budget games, but what we're seeing is less risks with those type of games. Is the indie scene, the smaller development team, where we're going to start seeing the innovation moving forward?
Yeah, I think we've already seen that, right? I mean, conceptually, there's a lot of amazing stuff happening in the indie scene, and I don't think to me, it's not about how much money you spend on the game. I mean, I love huge, epic single-player adventures, right? And, I want Valve to make more of those. I want Naughty Dog. I want Rockstar. I want, all these guys to make those games. So, yeah, I'm bummed that there's not more of that happening. But, the games are becoming more services. A lot of gamers don't have, 30-plus hours to put into a game. They want to have a short session game that's really a lot of fun and exciting. And I think what, Ken and Cliffy are doing, is progressive. I think they're going to sort of figure it out. And, ultimately, Blue Streak or whatever Ken's working on, those could be games that, end up making more money than Gears of War. It's just going to be, treating it differently as a service. And I think a lot of people, don't realize how successful some of those free-to-play games are out there. And I think Cliff has maybe said his is free-to-play. I don't think Ken said what his business model is, but at least they're trying to do something different. And, you got to respect these creators. I think if they feel more free to build the stories or the worlds or the experiences that they want to through these sort of smaller studio models, that's great. And the cool thing now is I found out with the Game Awards is like when you break off, do something independent, the audience can find you very easily now. I mean, 15 years ago, everything was tightly controlled. Sort of, you had to get on this magazine cover or you had to get in this magazine or you were destroyed. Now it's like through social and through, the community and YouTube and everything like that. I mean, there's so many ways to get your game out there now and get them in front of people. So it's really kind of exciting that you can be independent and do your own thing. So I admire what, Cliff and what Ken are doing, and even in the media space, what like Greg Miller and the Kind of Funny guys are doing. I mean, it's really cool to see that people can break free and do great stuff. And I feel the same way. I mean, it's awesome for me to be able to do the Game Awards, do my podcast, or do a bunch of other stuff that I'm going to do over the next year. And be able to do it myself. It's a special time. Yeah,
I think something like Star Citizen, I found that completely through social media and word of mouth. I had no clue about that until a few months ago, and now I'm fully invested in it. I want to know everything about that game. So yeah, I definitely think that can be the proper approach moving forward with these indie games.
One of my highlights for I believe it was 2 years ago during the last time your awards was on Spike, was when you basically premiered No Man's Sky, independent developer, and it got tons of like media attention and social media attention from the fans, and that was a pretty cool moment. I know you mentioned that a couple of times that was a big moment for you.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, that was it's exciting when you can do something like that with a smaller developer, and really change their lives. And Sean Murray was a guy that I met a few years before when he was just working on Joe Danger in the IGF festival. And I sent him an email saying, your game looked really cool. We met up at GDC. I hung out with him once at Gamescom and just sort of built a relationship with him. And he always told me like, wow, we want to do this next gen game. It's a crazy idea. And, I visited with him that summer and we started to talk a bit about it. And it just felt like they were going to do something really special. And I was excited that I could, have a platform for him to come out and show his game. I mean, it was scary for those guys, even in the days and weeks leading up to the show. They weren't sure if it was good enough. They were debating whether they should show it. And, ultimately we put it on the show. And I didn't even know, what kind of reaction it would get. I was, obviously excited about the demo. And I thought, I wanted to give Sean that stage alongside the big boys, as I said to him when I emailed him the first time about it, but I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. And it was just so cool because instantly, I mean, everyone just went crazy for the video and just loved it. And, it inspired people to think of where games could go. And here was a small indie team making something that felt so crazy ambitious. So yeah, it was amazing. I got to hang out with Sean a couple of weeks ago and we just spent like 6 hours together just talking about stuff and where the game was at and where they're going with it. It's daunting to have a game with that much anticipation around it now, but I'm a big believer in that team, and I'm really honored that I was able to sort of launch that inside of one of my shows.
The biggest thing I picked up on from that was the passion that he showed when they were announcing the game. It's like you could see it. You could see how nervous he was, and you could see hoping everybody would like it, and it just felt genuine, and that's what initially attracted me to it. And I'm excited to see whenever it eventually comes out. I definitely want to play it and explore that world. But that, I think, is the opportunity that you have now with the Video Game Awards, is you can spotlight those type of people and expose them to millions of people that had no clue who they were, what they were doing, and people can get behind their games and support it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I'm really excited about, is that we can, I have a platform now, and you'll see that at E3, you'll see that at the awards. It's like we can, we don't just have to bring on the absolute biggest games out there. Those guys can afford to buy lots of TV ads and, get them in front of people. The thing that, I hope I can do and give back in a way is find these smaller games that I really believe in, and give these developers a shot to, be on stage next to Call of Duty, next to Metal Gear Solid. So yeah, it's a unique position I'm in, and I'm thinking a lot about that lately, about how can we, inspire more indie developers to come out and show their stuff, because also those games are naturally some of the most exciting, interesting titles out there. So, I'm trying to do something that's sort of selfless and, giving them time and cultivating that. But also it's like, this is the stuff that inspires me to, stay in this industry is, small teams like Hello Games, which are building experiences that just feel uniquely fresh. And right now, a lot of the big publishers are, doing interesting games, but it's really hard to, break free of, sort of the tropes that you expect with these AAA games.
Well, one thing I would like to ask is, there's a lot of upcoming journalists or people that are just fans of maybe of a company that they have their own blog, their own podcast, their own YouTube. What advice you would give them for them to get their name out there? Because there's so much competition. And I know you mentioned earlier, a couple podcasts that got your attention here and there in gaming. It's very competitive nowadays. There's so many people trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. My advice is always just do something different, right? And look at the landscape of, what's out there and just figure out how can you do something unique or different. And that applies to, making games. It applies to covering games. And I mean, there's just, there's so much going on out there. It really is, as you said, hard to break through the noise. And my advice to everyone is like, well, find, a unique angle. Like for me, when I was growing up, it was always about doing behind the scenes coverage of these game developers. So there was lots of, talk about the games, but no one really talked about the people behind the games. And that really launched my career, writing these stories about these amazing game developers, and telling their stories through the final hours or through the other things that I was doing. So I think it's, it's that idea now. And the same thing with, making games, and talking about them. You got to do something different. You got to find how you're going to be unique. Even for me, when I did my podcast, I didn't want to do a podcast like everyone else. I wanted to sort of figure out, could I do something that was a little more narrative, deeper, longer interviews, just try and do something different. Because as you know, when you look at the Steam pages about how many indie games there are, or if you look at, as you said, how many podcasts are out there, or how many websites covering games, there's a lot out there.
Yep.
Well, Geoff, I know I told you 45 minutes, so we're at 45 minutes. I think that is the perfect stopping point for this. I really appreciate you coming on the show and giving us your insight and everything that you do. It's really appreciated.
No, I'm huge fans of what you guys have been doing, and the fact that you've done it so long, and take the time to talk to your audience every week. It's amazing. So yeah, thanks for inviting me on. We will hopefully see you guys at E3. And anyone listening can, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Geoff Keighley, and I try and reply to everybody. So, I would love to hear what people thought of this interview, and check out my podcast if you get a chance. I'd love to hear what people think.
Definitely. We'll go to the awards this year too, right, Parris?
Come on out.
Hey, maybe he'll have us on the bonus round. You never know.
Bring you guys in Hip Hop Gamer.
No, well, maybe.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
He's always complaining to me about how I never have anyone on the bonus round except the same people again and again.
Well, just real quick before you go then. Actually, I understand that. I mean, you're out of LA. I'm in the same area as well. And it seems to me, and obviously you know more than I do, you're doing it when you have time, or you're at like GDC or something and everyone's together so that you can grab certain people, and then you're just filming it all at once and putting it out piece by piece. So I get it. I understand. We're not all in the same place. Maybe E3 is something where hip hop could come on, or someone else that's complaining that they never come on. But I mean, I watch it all the time. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's, I think we switched up a little more in terms of the people that have been coming on lately. And it used to always be Pactor and me and, folks. And we've had, interesting new faces on.
Like Malik is pretty good.
Yeah.
Exactly. Malik was on. We had Matt Pat from YouTube, and we've had sort of other people. So yeah, we're trying to definitely include everyone. But you're right. Part of it is just a function of like where we're filming, when we're doing it. And I'm always traveling around, and we're sometimes doing it at events. So yeah, we try and switch it up. But people also have, favorites. They like to see certain people on the shows. So we'll keep changing it up, and I would love to have you guys on at some point.
Definitely, man.
Sounds good to me. Again, Geoff, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
This is Gamertag Radio. Voicemail 786-2737-GTR.
This is Parris with the Gamertag Radio, and today I want to do a review on a gaming headset. I want to talk about the Siberia V3 by SteelSeries, and I want to thank SteelSeries for providing us with a review sample of this headset, and I also want to take up SteelSeries on their challenge for the Siberia V3. Recently, they've issued the challenge to consumers to pick up the Siberia V3 and compare it to other gaming headsets, and if you are not satisfied with its quality, they will completely refund you your money. So let's just go over what I did for this challenge. I reviewed this headset over 3 platforms via the PlayStation 4, over the Xbox One, and on the PC. I did not use Dolby Digital surround headset because this is a stereo headset, so I felt the comparison should be fair. So on the Xbox One, I used Microsoft's own stereo headset. On the PlayStation 4, I used a Turtle Beach stereo headset, and I use the same Turtle Beach headset on the PC as well. Like I said, Siberia V3 is a stereo headset. It has a 3.5 millimeter adapter that you can plug directly into the PlayStation 4 controller. If you have the chat adapter on the Xbox One, you can plug it directly into that. And you can also plug this directly into the 3.5 millimeter adapter on the PC. Now, build quality on this headset. At first, I didn't like how it felt on my head. To kind of give you guys a visual, it is not adjustable independently on the left and the right. It has in the middle an elastic band that is basically a one-size-fits-all type of headset. I have a big head, so at first it felt a bit uncomfortable, and I felt I needed to slide the headset slightly back on my head. But after a few hours of gameplay, I got used to it, and it felt completely fine. I think the cup size is fine. I think the padding around the cups are perfectly fine. So I think wearability, the typical gamer won't have an issue with this at all. It has a retractable microphone, which the sound quality is decent. It's very comparable to anything that you would see on your standard gaming headsets. I wouldn't say it's any better or any worse than any of those, and it's completely fine if you're multiplayer gaming. For example, playing Titanfall and playing a little bit of the Master Chief Collection on the Xbox One, I was able to communicate with my teammates just fine. On the PlayStation 4, playing Destiny, I was able to talk to my teammates just fine as well. And on the PC, I didn't play any multiplayer games. I just simply played Wolfenstein: The New Order and Kentucky Route Zero. And again, the sound quality overall is fine. I think the bass reproduction for stereo headset is pretty good. I really had no issues at all with that. Again, like I said, the headset's very comfortable on my head. I think in comparison, though, this definitely was the superior product to the Microsoft stereo headset. And the Turtle Beach headsets I use, they're actually headsets that are used not only for gaming, but you can also plug them in and use them on mobile devices as well. And the Siberia V3s were better. At first, I was a little worried about them because, again, I just wasn't comfortable wearing them. So I would warn anyone picking these up, there is a break-in period to get used to these. But once you break them in and they're comfortable on your head, sound reproduction is excellent. Like I said, talking in multiplayer games is fine. It is definitely a good headset. I would absolutely recommend it. At $99, if you're comfortable spending that, compared to picking up some of the more expensive headsets that do reproduction Dolby Digital, I think this is a good price. I really do. So SteelSeries headset, do I recommend it? Absolutely. I give it 2 thumbs up. And if you guys have any questions, suggestions for us, send an email over to Gamertag Radio at fanmail@gamertagradio.com, or leave us a message on Twitter at Gamertag Radio. This is Parris, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
You're listening to Gamertag Radio. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week.